I'm imagining this like funny little sound bit you're gonna play. It's like blah blah blah. Welcome to.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Scrim. I'm here today with some incredible Imagineers. This duo has done some incredible things in Austin, not only with their own independent production company, but building out these experiences that we're going to get into today. I'm incredibly excited to introduce to y'all Clayton Guns Lillard and Mateo Gutierrez. Fellas, how y'all doing?
Love the nickname throwback.
Yeah,
It's been a long time since anyone's called me that.
Yeah, I figured you were a big Second Amendment advocate. You know?
That's always the young gun. That's where it comes from.
you should start going by guns again.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
Was it Young Gun, not like Muscle Guns?
Yeah, I was just young. They called me Young Gun.
You're a Young Gun.
Because
Young
when
Gun.
I joined that band, I was 19 and everyone else was in their late 20s.
Yeah. I found it on like Discog.
I was the I was the Young Gun.
Awesome, fellas. Well,
Yes.
thank y'all for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having us,
yeah,
Drew.
Thank you.
Yeah. Y'all are coming off a big celebration. You had your 1 year anniversary of Mesmerize Living Dream.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
Congratulations.
we made it 1 year in our current location.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Didn't think that would happen. It just kind of evolved, and
Right.
the party was a good celebration. And I always feel like these events are always almost for everyone else because it's so hard for me to enjoy because I feel like I'm running around with my head cut off at these events. But at the end of it, it's good to high five and be like, that was amazing.
This one I was really refreshed because I felt like this was one of the first events that we did where I didn't feel that way. Like normally I am running around with my head cut off all the time. And it is hard. It's hard to like be present and enjoy them because you're hosting and you're working on, making sure everything is going okay. This one I feel like I really got to sit into it a little bit. We had plenty of staff, we had plenty of help, and everything was going good. There was a couple of like, oh, we're out of ice, we need to make a run or whatever. But
Y'all are learning. They're
I just
learning
felt like
to.
all
to
I guess we
delegate.
traded places because usually I'm the one sitting back and
All
he's
night,
in
yeah.
host mode. And then this time I was like,
and it just felt really good. Like we had so many people show up and support, and for me personally, I had a lot of like people from like the Guns era and just friends from other eras of my time in Austin who like I didn't expect to see, who showed up in support, and I was like, oh my god, like so cool to see. Like, it's nice catching up with all these other chapters of my time in Austin and,
Right.
and having these other, because it's like we've got a lot of the supporters who we see all the time, which is great, but it was just nice to like get some people from other parts of my time here in Austin, from other versions of all the different creative, stuff that we've gotten involved with over the years. That was nice. It felt really good.
It was a huge
Reinvigorating.
milestone, especially the fact that we brought back Mesmerize in this iteration because we had the experience before in 2020 to 2021. And then we had this like 3 years of this figuring out what we were going to do and starting the Living Dream experience at our current space. Yeah, it was, we didn't know how it was going to.
You never know how it's going to go.
How it was going to go. And it was great to
it's working.
celebrate that year
hell yeah.
anniversary. So it was very nice. It was,
And you guys had Capyak, who had Reggie Watts with
Yes,
them.
that was insane.
You
That
got to
was really
relax and
exciting.
enjoy that.
We're just genuine like Capyak fans, and then we're friends with their manager, and we've bumped into them plenty over the years, and have been watching them blow up for the better part of a decade. We've always wanted to do something with them,
Always.
but since they've been sort of not based in Austin over the last however many years, it's harder to land them for anything. And we just got super lucky that the date of our event happened to be right before the date of their last, tour date here in Austin. So we're able to snag them for a secret DJ set. And it was
Stars
great. It was so much
Yes.
fun.
It was pretty cool too because I unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but I go to Spokesman Coffee Shop, which is just down the road from y'all, and I was in there. I think it was a morning, that week after the y'all's 1 year anniversary, and one of the baristas like overheard them talking, like, "Oh man, did you go to Mesmerize?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, hey."
There we go.
That's nice.
The word is spreading. I
Yeah,
love it.
it was funny. We went to a show like a couple days after that, or maybe it was the next night even. We were walking downtown and we were on Red River, like passing Elysium, like in the 13th floor or whatever, where they have like right there on the sidewalk, they have like the smokers patio. And then we're walking by, I think we were coming from Stubbs or something. And somebody in the smokers patio or whatever was like, "Hey, you're the Mesmerize guys, right?" And it was just like really random and out of nowhere. I was like, "Oh, like that, we were at your party the other day. That was so much fun, man." I was like, "Oh, that's awesome,
Dude, hell yeah.
So that was cool.
The recognition is coming along. I mean,
Yeah.
and like you said, I mean, you guys have had a lot of chapters here in the city, and
Yeah,
it's cool
definitely.
that, there's just different eras and people recognize you guys throughout that time.
Yeah, I mean, we met you in a backyard like 12 years ago.
Dude, summer nights. Yeah.
Summer
Yes.
nights, man.
That was
I
right.
drive by that house every once in a while, and I'm like, I remember that spot.
Yeah,
that
the
funky little A-frame house. Yeah.
That was the Collabinart days, right? That was
Yeah, that
y'all's-
was like when we
y'all's
first
first iteration of stuff.
first iteration of a collab and art kind of thing. And
yeah.
we were doing those backyard concerts with
Yeah,
Marshall
that was-
Moon and
yeah,
Ruby
that was-
Jane.
That was
and
wild.
uh,
So long ago.
and then Will Bielhars was like making all the benches for that show. And then a couple months later, he ended up making artistry. And now he runs these like epic treehouse resorts all over the place.
Right.
Wow.
That was a real launch pad. Like there was
Yeah,
a lot
it
of
was.
creative juices during that
We're all
time.
evolving. Love that.
Well, that kind of, I think, kind of leads us into sort of how this all began, right? So, a little bit about the history of y'all. So, how, first of all, to kind of set the stage for our listeners, y'all started IEC Creative, and this was background, what, like 2016, 2017, kind of
2018 actually
2018
was when we actually like got that established.
Yeah, we
And
had
I
our
mean-
first gig that we needed to start an LLC and get a bank account because we got Twix as a client, and we were like, "Oh, we need a bank account and an IEN number and all this stuff." And it was-
we were
taxes?
just fake-
yeah, I know.
just fake it till you make it. We were like we were in the early stages of like, all right, let's start our own thing. We were putting our website together and compiling a portfolio like based on past projects, and so we're just like putting everything together. And then we had like a referral to support someone during South by, and we were like, oh yeah. So we just presented ourselves as if we were already established. But then it got to that
You
point
gotta
where it
do
was
it.
like, well, I'll send them an invoice. Like, okay, well, I need to place. Who are they going to pay? Are they going to pay you? Are they going to pay me? I guess we should go get a bank account. And then
Google, how
just
do
like
I-
literally in 1 week, getting a business established so we can
Yeah.
at least, do that job. And we figured it out.
And I mean, from there, right? You guys have done stuff with Twix, Netflix, Fender Guitars, Illfest, She Media, Hope Outdoor Gallery. You did an incredible build out, Marketing Land at ACL Live.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun.
And then you have your own self-produced events. You've done your Area 54 New Year's Eve parties.
That was a big one. That was awesome.
And then obviously, Mesmerize, enter the multiverse at Native, which, that drew over 18,000 visitors through that time period. And was kind of the beginning of what we're going to talk about. But before all that, so, I mean, you guys have done some incredible things. So, how did y'all meet? What's y'all story? How did y'all meet? What were y'all doing leading up to this? Like, was it music? Was it actually art? Like, how did y'all's origin story begin?
We met
Friends
through
from San Antonio.
Yeah,
from San Antonio?
We met through mutual friends. My best friend and his best friend were cousins, and we would always go hang out at this one house and just go ride bikes, And
He's a couple years older than me.
Yeah.
And so.
Old young gun over here.
Yeah. But, Hispanic families in San Antonio, like everyone's hanging out at the cousins or the grandmas or something kind of all the time. And so we would just be hanging out with our mutual friend or whatever. And then they would be like, oh, my cousin's coming over. And so then Matt G would show up
Yeah,
as I knew him.
I was Matt
as
G
I knew
back in
him
the day.
when I was in middle
Matt G.
school. And then, and vice versa. And then you know, I think over the years, both of those guys ended up, you know, choosing a different path and like going in a different direction. And me and him stayed in contact. I left San Antonio and went to Boston. I went to Berkeley for music school for a bit, and then I made my way to Austin. And when I got here, my goal was to play music. I went to Media Tech, was doing like recording and live sound trade program stuff, and was that 2008 when I got here. And then Mateo was in San Antonio a couple years longer, but then moved up, I think like a year and a half or 2 years after I was in Austin. And I was just like one of the few people that he knew in town when he moved up here. So he just let me know when he was here, and he was like, "Hey, I got the Chevelle in town. Let's go drive around town. I just moved to Austin."
I had a '69 Chevelle, and that thing was beefy.
And I was 19, so I was like, "Yeah, dude, let's go. This will be awesome."
Yeah, so we really didn't start becoming like real good friends until I moved to Austin.
Yeah, we were more just acquainted.
Y'all kind of disconnected and then
Yeah.
Well, no,
reconnected.
we just had like we were friends of friends, you know. So we didn't really like have our own rapport. You know, I just knew who he was.
Right.
And then when we were both in Austin, and then he moved up here, and he was like, "Hey, I just moved here. Like, I don't know anybody really. Let's hang out." That's what started our actual like friendship. And then from there, we ended up being roommates on and off together, and through different, you know, iterations of our living situation. And then he got into like the corporate AV world like right away when he moved to Austin. So he was working at hotels for
did a bunch of AV. Clay had also started a little nonprofit show called $2 Shows. I was doing videography and just AV stuff, and so whenever I would go to his events, I would like, "Oh, hey, what if you tried this?" Or like, you know, right now there's a lot of people, and there's like, what if we had an overflow screen outside? And
he was bringing like production technique ideas to the table. Like I had these big visions and DIY, and was like trying to, you know, achieve a sort of vibe.
Right.
And then he would show up and be like, "I see what you're going for, but like, what about this, 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 and this?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, you're bringing like real technical foresight to the table here that I'm not even like privy to." And so then eventually I was like, "You should just like do these with me so we can
join
so we
the
can
crew.
be better, you know."
Joined the crew, helped out with $2 Shows for a while, and that was a lot of fun. And I think from there it just kind of fruition into a whole bunch of
what else are we gonna do?
Yeah, a bunch of different projects, and we, you know, started a photo booth business once, and then
for me, I was always just trying to like not have a real job, and now we just run two businesses, and it's like, you know. So I don't know how we got here really, but I was always like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make art and like follow my passion or whatever."
That's
and
right,
then,
yeah. So we started collabing art first with 2 other guys, and that was like,
and that's where we met you.
Yeah, that's when we all met.
During those years.
Did a lot of fun events and art projects, and snowballed into a lot of different work.
I think that's where we kind of got really more. We started dabbling more into the immersive, experiential kind of version of what we do now. Like he started doing more projection mapping and more video display stuff in different ways, and we started playing around with, you know, more scenic design and sort of like environment build out and stuff like that. Whereas before it was more a bit more like it was just, let's book some bands. Let's, you know, let's have maybe a cause that we're supporting. Let's have like a reason for the show. And then we'll put a vendor market together, and then we'll work with the venue. So it was a bit more like, you know, music and like vendor market kind of show. And then when we did collab art, it started becoming into like, oh, let's build some crazy, you know, projection mapping display, and let's make a bunch of interactive art pieces, and let's make like a visual playground for
we started snowballing in some work. We got hit up by South by for some work, GSD&M.
I forgot about that.
But then we, you know, as 4 friends all trying to have a business together, we all moved into a house together.
Oh boy.
And I think
it can be
you
tough.
It can be tough.
Yeah,
man.
it can be tough. So I think
you realize,
especially a creative business, because ideas, I mean,
it's like being in a band, you know,
yeah.
like you hear those stories about bands like, oh man, they made such good music for so long. I can't believe they ended up hating each other.
Yeah.
Well, you just kind of get sick of each other after a while when you do everything together. I think for us, we're telling ourselves like, oh, we should be in closer proximity, because now we'll all be there all the time to work on everything. And then you do that, and now you start sort of crossing wires between like your personal and your work life. And now because you're one way in your personal life, I can't, give you like an objective perspective in the work life stuff. It's like, oh, because you're not doing your dishes, now I'm mad at you at this job.
Shit.
It's like stuff like that starts happening. You're like, this is not helping anybody,
Right. You kind of need that space to breathe and then come to the table.
Yes.
But
So-
you got to go through that, right?
Yeah,
And
we
learn that.
broke up. Yeah, we broke up the band.
Yeah.
I ended up going on tour for a little while doing projection mapping. I got this gig at Marvel Universe Live. It was like a superhero stunt show. I was like one of 5 video guys.
Wow.
Massive arena projection mapping.
Yeah, that's where he really cut his teeth.
cut my teeth doing projection stuff.
So like, were you taking, so like when you guys were, really beginning to dive, because I like you said, I met y'all in that first iteration with Collabinard, and I always saw y'all as sort of, more creative than a traditional production house, right? Like, with my company Word, we were, audio, video, lighting, and there's other companies, Nomad, Big House, AL,
Yeah.
right? And they're great, right? And they stick in kind of a very traditional sense. And I always saw y'all as different in terms of just a creative approach,
Yeah.
more of the fabrication, more of the experience. Were there any like influences in that? Like, what do you think led you into that arena in terms of thinking along those lines?
I mean, I think for me, I think it was because I like being the sort of the idea person. Like, here's the vision, here's the thing that we want to bring to life. And so from my point of view, it was always like coming from that place. Because I got into it through trying to just make my band's shows more fun and interesting. And so I learned a lot of like weird DIY techniques just playing in these random bands, over the years. And, when I played with Salesman, Devin, he's like one of the most sort of interesting, eclectic creatives that I've ever come across. And so he would always have some far out idea. And I feel like I'm really good in that support role where it's like, oh, you got this crazy idea that it's just the idea. Well, my sort of fusion engineer mind is like, well, here's how we can do it. Here's how we can physically bring it to life. Like I see that. And so I always enjoyed that as from like a creative problem solving place. Right. And so then, I was playing drums in these bands, but now it's like, well, what can we do for stage lighting? What can we do for like set design? What can we do for the audience in the crowd for them to have something else like between bands so that like it's a photo booth or something like that. So I don't know, you just start getting into thinking around these other aspects of the experience. And then, when you're in your late teens and early 20s, you start throwing house parties. And I think the first couple of parties that I threw, I got enough high fives where I was like, I think I'm kind of good at this. It feels just kind of like performing in a different sort of sense.
Just as good as getting paid, man. Yeah. Good high five. Like, goes a long way.
Early on, those high fives are greeit.
I
mean, based on our 1-year anniversary party a couple weeks ago, those high fives still feel pretty good.
Yeah. Very, very real.
Sounds like, obviously from your perspective, music was a big influence in that creativity. Mateo, it sounds like you're more on the technical with sort of where you went into more.
He came in more high end.
Yeah, I think for me it was like we went from throwing events as an art collective, then going on tour and seeing large scale productions and really seeing all the different sides of what it takes to build a show like this. And I even, disappeared on the circus for like 3 months and worked on the circus and like. Dang. That was very interesting and, hard work, but really like seeing how these large productions are touring and what they're doing and the amount of, how much goes into these large scale productions. And then coming back, because even before that, I was just so much in the AV world and working around it. So really seeing all the aspects from the corporate to the concerts to the arena shows and so it really like got me into that technical world and then set up, I think kind of helped me just like bring that into what we're doing. And
while he was doing that, I was touring with like indie bands in a van, driving across the country playing at pizza parlors and random clubs.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. Yeah. I mean, it was fun, but like, we're getting two versions of this sort of, providing an experience for other people, right? I'm coming at it from this sort of like DIY music place. And then I have like a philanthropy background. So the organizational sense I have, and then he's coming at it from this production place, and he's getting to see all these, like he said, like from the arenas to the circus to like a corporate conference in a hotel. It's like, and then to like a show at a club somewhere. You see all the similarities and what is all the same and how it scales up and scales down, but all the elements are kind of the same. And then there's the room for the creative. And it's like, okay, all the technical aspects of bringing all these things to life are kind of the same. You need a venue, you need power, you need bathrooms, you need security, you need your core, elements. And then there's the creative. It's like, what are we doing here? Oh, it's a party, it's a conference, it's a concert. And then there's the sort of like sprinkles around it. Like, oh, this concert has a photo booth in the front room, and this party has this crazy immersive experience in the back. And you just start seeing all these different things. And I think, we've always just been like, how do we do a thing that people want to stay at? Like how do we get people to stay at whatever our production is like all night?
I came back from the tour life, and we came together again, and we started Independent Event Creatives. And we were getting some gigs, but I don't think we were always the best at selling and marketing. So then we came up with like, why don't we just start our own event series again? And that's where Mesmerize came into fruition. And we had no constraints of clients. We just wanted to create something, whatever we wanted to create. So Mesmerize started at Native Hostel. And we had our first event. I think we had like 300 people through our first event. And then we threw our second event. And then that one just was massive. It was, it was crazy how like we had a, line around the door before we even opened, and so many people came through, and we built this like massive little immersive photo op. And then we had DJs, and we had live painters, and we had vendors. And I think that was like the first.
Oh, we figured something out.
Yeah. And then that was almost the catalyst for helping us get clients for the production company. People would come to our Mesmerize events, and they'd be like, this is rad. I need you to do this at our party.
It's real-time marketing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't get much better than that.
And that's what we figured we were better at anyway, because we had tried to like spend some money on some digital ads and whatever. But like our strength is in doing the job that is that creative production thing, and like project management, and then the execution from the creative and the logistical side of like a production like that. But then, sales and marketing, that's all its own job, right? And that's not really where our skills lie, at least not our strengths. And so we were like, let's just show people what we do, and let's just throw a free event. And yeah, like you said, after that second one, it was like, oh, like then Native, all those folks were like, I don't know what you guys did, but you can do whatever you want here from now on. So let us know when you want another night.
Rest in peace, Native, man. I think that was
rest in peace.
Like that was another just like I feel like launch pad for a lot of creative people.
It was a great spot. We definitely had a lot of fun there, and Mesmerize was brought to life there.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if you remember Mesmerize. The original Mesmerize concept was actually the sort of one-off festival that we were trying to produce with you, HK Stages, and Austin Event Lighting when we all first started our companies. And everyone was like, we should do a thing together where we all co-produce it and we show it off. And we were like, you were like, I can do the sound. And Sean was like, I'll do the lighting. And Chris is like, I'll do the staging. And we were like, well, we'll put the concept together and we'll do the creative, and then we'll do that side of it. So we built the Mesmerize concept
I remember y'all went to town on that day.
As a 7-day show, and it was going to be a sort of like kind of South by-ish, like multi-day festival with like music, art, and like interactive components. And then it was just one of those things that we kind of we put together, and then we all got actually busy, and then everyone started, running their businesses, and it just kind of like got side tabled for a while. And then it wasn't until, like Mateo said, we got to that place where we're like, we need to like get the word out about our business a bit more. What do we do? And like, let's start a show again. And I think as we were thinking, what is it going to be? I just like pulled that out. I was like, well, we came up with this once. We kind of did all the creative work for it already. Mesmerize is a cool sort of, name, and implies kind of like the vibe that we're trying to bring to life. So
yeah, so we did
let's just rework
for
this
a couple years. Mesmerize as an event series.
Well, and I mean, and that like, I think, I think that really showcases y'all's ability of the DIY and then the high scale production. And I think a lot of brands and agencies try and replicate that, right? They want it to be DIY, but it actually is, you can do DIY for cheap and it's DIY, but then there's DIY that like, is it just like, it has authenticity to it. I think that's really what people want when they ask for DIY. And I think this kind of leads us right into the meat and potatoes, right? We want to talk about this it moment, which is Mesmerize Living Dream. To paint a picture for our audience, if they haven't been there yet. So you have 16 custom installations. Y'all have a warehouse down south. It's about like a 2,000 square foot sort of activation area. Mm-hmm. You have, thousands of people coming through, throughout this first year. And I wanted to, we're going to talk about the concept of it. We've kind of discussed a little bit how this all came about, the build up to it. But I want to read real quick how y'all describe Mesmerize. So, a colossal crystal has appeared in South Austin. A small facility in South Austin Industrial District has been fractured by the strange force of nature. Due to these crystals reportedly causing mass experience of hyper-vibrancy and wrapping reality, this living dream is being contained for further exploration. This is no ordinary find. Boundaries between waking life and fantasy have dissolved into one. Who is involved? Regional geologists were baffled, so the call went out to Diagnostic Dreams Inc., DDI, a team of elite dreamologists with one mission: to unlock the secrets of the colossal crystal. For weeks, DDI probed the crystal's mysteries, releasing mysterious findings to the public. But their research stirred the wrong kind of attention. A shadow organization known only as the Obsidian Reality Agency, OAR, issued a dire ultimatum: cease all investigations or face the destruction of the colossal crystal. Fearing the OAR's threat, the dreamologists abandoned the site, leaving their research in the hands of the Violet Moon, a rogue society of dream guardians sworn to protect the boundaries of the dream realm. What's happening now? With the Violet Moon now guarding the site, all who enter are marked as rogue explorers, set to embark on their own journey through a realm of enchantment, uncover the secrets of the colossal crystal, challenge the fabric of reality, and experience the true power of this living dream. Whew.
Yeah, baby.
So holy moly! All right, so
we got to keep the dream. Yeah, we got to keep the dream alive.
Yeah,
I haven't heard or read that full passage in a minute.
Yeah, so we're talking about 3 different entities. You got the evil force, the good force, the Violet Moon force, the rogue society. Let's talk about the concept of it.
Yeah,
this is a lot. This isn't just a shower idea. So how does this come about? What are the influences that are now, and we're talking about Living Dream, so you've gone through, your first iteration of Mesmerize. So how does this concept come about? What are the influences? And then, how long does it actually take to get this concept to be like, we're fixing to open doors?
Well, there's a lot of,
there's a lot
that goes into that. But just trying to simplify it or distill it down a little bit. Like when we did our first exhibit, Enter the Multiverse, that was a sort of cosmic journey. So we had one character, Mesmer, and the storyline followed their journey of sort of opening this portal to these different worlds. And then they had documented their excursion by leaving journal entries. So the journal entries were these left behind pieces to help the guests navigate and gather some context for what the room was. Because for us, I think, as much as we love providing a fun, photogenic moment for somebody, we like having a little more depth and substance to certain things, and also sort of bringing a story to life a bit more. And we don't necessarily try to write every aspect of it down, but we want to give a guideline. So we're just providing a sort of imaginative premise that is the foundation, so then guests can have some contextual elements to pull from and to work with, so they can interpret it in their own way and then go on their own version of the journey. But it, so
I mean, is this
that's how we got there?
Yeah, and like, is that process a collaborative effort? Is it kind
very
of
much so? Yeah.
but is it more of like, somebody's kind of hacking away at a big log of wood, right? Kind of get it, and then it gets handed off to somebody to do more detail. Like, is that kind of how y'all?
Yeah, with
come
this
up with
one,
this
I
kind
think
of
it's
concept?
started in like, just us butting our heads together and just coming together and just figuring out what is the overall concept, right? So we with this one, we came up with dreams. So we're like, okay, and what's the narrative component
the
behind
dreams
it?
we got because we wanted to pivot from the multiverse
Yes.
concept. So we're like, okay, well, if we're not going to do that, what is it going to be? And we ended up with dreams, and then it's like, okay, what do we do with dreams?
Yes.
Right.
And this was also like our living dream was to bring back Mesmerize
Right.
in this sense. So that was also kind of like our real dream, is like bringing back.
Because while you're coming up with this concept, you have your own production company, right? You're hustling,
Yeah.
you're doing all those shows, doing those events. At the same time, now you're like, okay,
And we also had the real life of our current warehouse doubling in rent, and our current space that we've had for 5 years. At that point, we were using it as our office, our production house, our build space, and then we also had it as a co-working space. So we had other artists, we had screen printers, we had live painters, we had, it was just a bunch of different artists. Then somebody bought our whole warehouse, doubled the rent. Everybody had to get out.
5 years of not a single rent increase.
Yes.
And then the new owners, day one, literally double it.
So
fucked, dude.
so then
That's the
Clay,
story of Austin.
yep. And so Clay and everyone was like, I can't afford the rent increase, so we're getting out. And so Clay and I were like, well, fuck, what are we gonna do?
so it kind of birthed a little bit from necessity, or like a little bit of that
lot
stress.
of the creative stuff that we've done have all been kind of like, forged under fire, kind of,
Well, there was this eagerness to really get it going again, because right after the native experience, the first iteration, we were really trying to build this massive brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
And we found this building and we signed a lease, and unfortunately all that kind of dropped out underneath us. And from that one, it put us in this weird spot. We lost some money, we lost momentum, we kept it alive as far as doing maybe 1 to 2 to 3 events a year for that 3 years. Then we're like, there was always an eagerness of bringing back Mesmerize. We just weren't sure how or when, or it's just like
with the native partnership, that also kind of fell into necessity too, because it was a pandemic pivot.
Right.
Mesmerize started as this event series to promote our, creative production services. And we thought that we had figured out that equation. Like, all right, we're going to do these Mesmerize parties once a quarter, and, we'll spend this much money on them. And they seem to be, providing leads for new client projects and things like that. So let's just keep up with this. We had 2020 all lined up and booked out. And then sure enough, as soon as South by gets canceled, then we're like, oh, this is real. Like, I didn't believe anything until South by was like, no, we're not happening. And I was like, if South by is not happening, then it's something's
world
real
is-
is
yeah.
happening, because I'm like, there's no way South by is canceling for any reason. And then when that happened, I was like, okay, this is real. And then, we were
On unemployment.
on unemployment.
Our production company got
Like,
canceled.
for the first time in our lives. Like, we just weren't allowed to work. We weren't allowed to go. We didn't know what was going on. It just felt like the world was ending. And then we've been, ostensibly starving artists our whole lives, trying all sorts of creative things and having odd jobs here and there. And we had just gotten to the place where we're like, we figured it out. Like, we've got our own production company and we're producing these events and it's working well. And then all of a sudden you're not allowed to do the one thing that you've been building for a decade. So we were like, we didn't know what to a lot of discouragement for sure. I had just gotten to a place where I was kind of like, my apathy was really taking over. And I was like, I'm just going to shoot my bow and arrow and like hit the gym every day and just wait for the world to burn. And then, Native approached us and was like, seems like art galleries are the only thing that are allowed to be in operation right now in the real like physical space, as long as they have COVID safety protocol. So they're like, why don't you take over our event space and, bring your art gallery idea, that Mesmerize concept I heard that you had before, we had to put the concept together and like, oh, it'd be cool to do it this way, one day where it's more of like an ongoing exhibit, but we'd never really didn't know how to do that, or because we were always in the events world. So doing something for long term just wasn't in the
Yeah, it's a
realm
different way
ex-
of thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And so we didn't have any experience with that. And so then this was like, oh, Native gave us a small budget to work with. We just had 3 months to build it out. And so it was just me and Mateo showing up every day, like bumping our heads together.
16
like,
hours a day.
What are we going to do? And we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
built
Going
it.
to town.
And then it ended up being like one of the most lucrative things that we'd ever done. And
What a trip.
it took
right?
it took us from being on like unemployment for the first time in our lives, and then
to now like generating the most
to
revenue
now having
you've like
having 12 hourly employees, and we're like, oh, we're managers of a business now. Like, this is wild. And then that worked really well. And then we just had such good feedback and such a good positive response from the community that it was really, invigorating and exciting. But it definitely it came to its bittersweet end, at that venue. But we'd met a lot of people. We've shown ourselves that we could do this new kind of thing, and we'd learned a lot in the process. So like that eagerness Mateo was mentioning earlier was definitely like still one of the most prominent, I think, emotions that we were going through. Was like, we just got to figure out how to do this again.
right.
And then, the
was
world
either-
was
yeah.
open up again. So now we had to get back to real life in a different kind of way too. So there was a lot to juggle. And so it took us longer than we had wanted it to take.
Yeah, I think after we were full force Mesmerize, and then it ended at Native, and then we were still full force of trying to get this massive building, and that didn't end up working out. And then we were okay. Let's start our production company again. Then we actually started doing that again and started getting gigs again. And so there was this 3-year period of like still planning on Mesmerize, but we just didn't know in what sense.
Right.
And
And then
we wanted to scale up from the version that we had established
Yeah.
at Native. So it felt like going backwards if we had to do anything like
It's
smaller.
like a natural progression, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and for better or for worse, I think it just put us in that mindset of like, oh, we don't want to do it if it's not going to be bigger than what it was. And then we just had to get to that point to where it's like, oh, now our building just sold and we have to figure out how to pay for this 2-year lease
Yep.
that we're locked into.
and so
And it's,
yeah,
and all of our tenants, our shop mates just moved out. And so it went from being half of the rate shared 5 ways to being twice the rate, only the 2 of us. And so it was like, oh, we got to really figure out how to
and
pay
yeah,
for
we were just like,
the
why
expenses of our
don't
business.
why don't we just bring Mesmerize here? Let's try it again. And at that point, it was just back to Clay and I. So we were like, why don't we just start it here? And what's the possibility of that?
And we still had a lot of the infrastructure, even from the
Yep.
old one, like a lot of the wall flats and things like that. Like just
Some of that material that you
infrastructure
could-
materials.
Yeah, and we owned a lot of gear. We had some
Um,
lights and projectors and a bunch of different things that we could reuse. And so we were like, well, why don't we self-invest into ourselves? let's build Mesmerize here. So
is
we
what we got.
had that first thought, and then at that point we just started going, just starting a Google Drive of just, here are all the ideas, here are the different concepts. It could be an art gallery that you walk into and the art gallery comes alive. It could be dreams. It could, so we came up with all these different narratives. And then at that point, we also started clearing the warehouse, and we had so much crap. So that itself took, I think, 3 months to just completely clear the space. And also we had to insulate the space because we had HVAC in the warehouse space, but it wasn't insulated. So we're like, there's no way we can start an art experience here.
We can't expect people to show up
and it's going to be 95. Yeah, it's going to be
warehouse.
95 degrees. So then we're like getting quotes, and it was going to be $14,000 to do insulation. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Well,
Look,
the
that
materials-
YouTube.
The
how do I-
materials
Yeah.
are only 7. Okay,
Yeah,
let's just buy the
yeah.
materials and install it ourselves.
I think the materials were 4, and then we had to pay another couple thousand for a little bit of help. But there I am doing insulation.
There he is. I went to Hawaii to go check on
went to
another
Hawaii.
project.
I'm over there doing insulation with a
sounds
little
about
crew.
right.
He did the
I
hard
called
work.
one of my boys to help. I had a few people help, and then one of them shows up completely just covered in long sleeve shirts, and I was like, "Bro, it's gonna be hot," and he's like, "I don't think you realize what it
It's
entails
fiberglass,
to work
bro."
with fiberglass," and I'm like, "Bro, it's fine," and then he's like, "I literally see fiberglass all around you."
It's like,
And I'm like, yeah, that
not
was
healthy.
the hardest thing is putting in insulation.
Well, if you guys need insulation, Mateo 555.
No, never again.
Well, we're kind of getting into the creation of it, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, all the
so it's kind of like, so you've kind of come up with this concept, and now you're having to create it, right? So you have a 3,000 square foot warehouse, uninsulated. So you got to figure out infrastructure, which it sounds like you're doing that. Then you've got to collaborate with 30, 40, 50 artists to, build it. I know y'all were the primary, artists in it. Then you're creating a soundtrack, and I saw y'all work with Grant Himmler, Dave Schur, a bunch of other, credible local, awesome musicians. So the creation of it. So let's kind of, start. So you get your infrastructure built. Then what's that next step in kind of building out this space?
Well, through the whole process, we're like the concept of dream that you're talking about. And he had mentioned we had a few different concepts of like, all right, if we don't want to do the sort of cosmic journey again, what is the new, imaginative world that we're going to build? And so we had a few ideas on the table, and I think a lot of them kind of involved a dream state of some sort, but we didn't quite know how exactly we wanted to like focus on the dream realm or like what we wanted to do with it. We wanted to just use dreams because it's a good sort of open-ended palette, right? If it's a dream world, it's like we can make up anything, and then we can make it mean anything also. But now but that's also challenging too, because like if it can be anything, then it's kind of nothing too. And it's like you need to build a box to now like work within. And we do have another like core group of folks who we work with a lot, who are really good in this sort of like imaginative, like the girl who helped us write that blurb that you read. She's a really good, fantasy storyteller, and a couple other people that we work with have a lot of experience in the immersive world. And
So is that all like being done,
kind of weekly, like
Simultaneously.
is this
Simultaneously.
meetings,
We're also
emails?
coming up
Like,
with the-
are y'all calling meetings and saying, "Hey guys," or
Yep.
is it emails?
Yeah.
We're having weekly meetings. I'm also drawing out the layout.
is that like SketchUp or like are you using software?
I'm using Photoshop.
Pencil and paper.
Photoshop.
Yeah, literally Photoshop, coming up where the walls can go. And then once we figured out the layout, then it was like I started a long list of just install ideas.
Yeah, we had kind of said like, all right, well, you take lead on coming up with what just installation ideas that, from just a purely artistic point of view, like ideas that he might have had where he's like, I want to make this come to life in some way. because I've got this idea for a projection room or for this lighting piece. And then I was coming at it from trying to narrow down like what's the narrative concept. And then we would kind of like throw ideas into the center, and then we'd meet in the middle, and he'd be like, well, here's this idea that I really like. And then I'd be like, oh, that gives me this kind of vibe. So we can use this part of the narrative that I've established and attach it here, and then flesh out some more of the sort of storyline components using that. So we're kind of working both directions at the same time. I think we really
divided and conquered.
And then after doing a lot of that, and then still feeling like, wow, it still kind of needs to be like tightened up a little bit, I think I just had a moment where I was like, I think this is all just going to be like a sort of, an analogy for us as artists trying to live the dream. Like this whole journey that we've been going on, like it's hard, but we're in it and we love it. And this is just going to be this sort of, reimagined version of what it means to to have a dream and to want to live it and to bring it to life. So then we just started coming up with, character profiles. So the good guy, the bad guy, maybe the anti-hero kind of thing, and trying to sort of place them in certain roles, and then present this, outline of an environment that was sort of like the residual aftermath of this, cataclysmic event where the colossal crystal, which is the power source of all dreams in the region, just like fractured through the boundary of reality and causes the dream realm to spill out into the nature of this space. And so we're like, okay, well, here's our moment that we're allowing people to explore. And then all of the storyline components that they'll be interacting with or will be exposed to will give them contextual elements about like living a dream. But really, it is just kind of this, analogy for us as artists trying to live a dream.
Right.
Yeah, I would say it was probably about 2 to 3 months of pre-production concept and also clearing the warehouse. Mm-hmm. Then we actually started the first layout build of laying out the walls, and we would, even before we laid out the walls, we laid out tape on the floor of like, here's where the walls would go, here's what we have. Then we would change things. Then I think September 1st or September was like the first date of like, let's build. So now it was build time. And
did you guys put like a timeline on that yourselves? Because you're working for yourselves, right? So it's like, how do you manage the like?
I think we were doing it for maybe like a month, and then we like, okay, I don't know if we came. Did we come up with?
We kept kind of pushing it back because we told ourselves one thing. It's like we'd like to open this date.
I think
like,
we said November. I think we said November. It ended up getting pushed to November 15th. So that was 2.5 months of build total, and that's
after you've done all your pre-production and everything.
And at the same time, the story is still, evolving as we're building, and new ideas are coming, new installs are coming as we're building.
Right. It's like, and so like with that, like, is there like pushback in that? Like, when you move in a direction and then someone's like, well,
there was. I mean, one of the big pushbacks that we had that really set us back probably about a month, maybe 2, was when we put that insulation in, the HVAC broke the next week. And then we went back and forth for 3 weeks negotiating with the landlords.
Because that HVAC was installed in 2003.
Yeah, and they didn't want to pay for it.
Back
and
when Bush was in office, man.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay for it.
No, that's on y'all. We're like, it's not ours. The previous owners put it in, and they're like,
according to your and it was a whole thing. Yes. And I had an email that said that they did replay it, and it was just a whole thing, and it really did.
So that diverts that diverts your resources, your attention, your energy.
Yeah, totally.
Because we literally had,
and then it makes you feel like, are we even going to be able to do this? Like, we just spent 3 months trying to get to this place, and like now we might
have to pay for a $14,000 HVAC, and that's going to take up all of our budget. Because I think altogether we put together $27,000 altogether to really put into this. And that was, we scrounged all that up.
Yeah.
I think we asked our parents for some money.
Yeah.
Got a little loan. Yeah. It's just like we scrounged up everything.
And then we had like the artists that we did work with, because like, I mean, we would love to have a bigger budget so we can then just think who would be the best artist for us to bring to the table for this idea that we have. And then we can work with them and then, you know, provide them with a working budget to really let them shine and take something and run with it. But we have to be really strategic because we don't have that much of a budget to work with. So we're like, okay, let's do as much as we can ourselves. But then in these certain moments where we really know like Tavis will be the perfect kind of person to bring in to animate this, or Liza would be a great person to
give those little her specialty moments.
These little things, or our friend Ine, who we always work with for stuff. She's really great with the imaginative, you know, thinking. And so we wanted to put them in a position to do certain things, but we ended up having to sort of negotiate a like, here's what we can afford.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what your ideal, you know, compensation would be for this thing that we're discussing with you. And then we'll guarantee this, and then we'll pay you back for the rest of it.
As doors open.
As doors open, you know? And so we kind of put together these sort of installment plans with some of our artists that we wanted to work with, but we didn't want to have to do we've all had to deal with people trying to offer you exposure or like undercutting you or whatever. And it's like, we don't want to play that card anymore, but we also don't have a lot of money to spend. So we got to be real about it. So we just worked with everyone in a way that it's like, whatever you're comfortable with, like we want you to feel like you're still being taken care of, but we want you also to get excited about it. And we don't want you to do something where you feel like you're having to, you know, cut corners or anything like that either.
And
so
yeah, the hardness of like the HVAC. And I remember the specific moment when Clay and I were in there. I mean, we were in there 16 hours a day and no sleep, showing up the next day and just working all day. But I remember this one day, him and I, we were talking about an install, and then, you know, we're both broke. He, I think, was
mentally, physically,
financially. Yes, financially,
Yeah.
all of it. And I remember he was like, I have to ask my dad for rent money. I haven't done that in over 10 years. And then we got in an argument about what are we doing here? And why, like, is this worth it? Like, should we just take this money and pay for our livelihoods to survive? Or because we're like, well, we started arguing about an installation, and
that's like, we don't usually do this. Why are we?
I know. Yeah, we're, you know, no sleep. You know, we're just gacked out of our minds, and we're just like, ugh. And yeah, I remember the specific moment where I was talking about an install, and then he disagreed, and then I was just like, what about this? And then it just got into like the heat of it. And we don't ever argue. And so that was like, I was like, well, what do you want to do, man? You want to quit? We can quit. Why do any of this? I was like, we can quit, or we can just do this. And I think we're just like, all right, let's just keep moving forward.
Fuck yeah.
I think at a certain point, you're just like, we're too far gone now. Like,
yeah,
we just
like
gotta see it till the end.
we're already in it. We're you know,
and complaining is not helping.
I feel like those magical moments come at those crossroads, right? I mean, it can go either way. You know, this still could have not worked, but obviously the results speak for themselves. And I think, you know, that should be inspiration. I think we'll talk about that kind of at the end, the ethos, right? Of how do you maintain and push through those barriers? And y'all are kind of talking about the challenges of it, right? And that's really, I think, the other big piece of this that I'm really interested in an installation like this, because you're having to deal with, you know, creative differences, fucking HVAC breaking, budget. You know, like what do you think was that biggest oh shit moment? Was it the HVAC, or was there like an installation? Like, is there a big oh shit moment?
It was probably the HVAC, and then
at that moment that you're describing, I feel like was probably the biggest, like having to look in the mirror, like feeling like a breaking point where you're like, the doubt is so like visceral that you really are, you feel like you're actually considering quitting, you know, like I feel like it's really easy as an artist and a creative to constantly be, you know,
beating yourself up.
You're beating yourself up, or you have like this perfectionism or this imposter syndrome, and then you're in the grind so much that you're just kind of exhausted and drained. And so I think that sort of those emotions are pretty relatable to a lot of creatives, but the real, like, this is a pivot I'm going to take. I'm not ever going to do this again. Like, I'm going to quit and do something. I'm going to go get a job and start a band, like I'm going to get out of this other thing that we're doing. That was pretty like, we do really need to take a moment and ask ourselves, is this actually worth doing? But I think it is just another moment where it's like, clearly we're tired. We got a lot on our plate. We need to like walk away from this and like get some sleep and come back maybe tomorrow and then
budget's a real thing.
Recalibrate.
Money is a real thing.
But at the end of it, it's like all those things that like the lack of money and us having to like do as much as we can ourselves because there's only so much money to hire support, and then having to work out these like payback plans with the artist. Our parents giving us a few $1,000 each to help on the front end. We ended up paying everybody back in full within like 4 months.
Awesome. That's incredible.
Which feels really good, right? And it makes and that's the inverse of that moment where you're like, I know it was really hard and we almost killed each other, but this was kind of worth it and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
I think it's just so wild that like to hear that, because on the surface this seems like just such a no-brainer. If me as an audience to me of it, it's like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. And and it's just wild to hear the behind the Scrim chaos of it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's just awesome to hear that y'all powered through and pushed.
And I'm really like grateful and proud of us too, because like we touched on earlier, it's like when we first got to Austin together and we're doing $2 shows, like our first version of like producing a thing for the community together. And then we're doing collab on art. I'm playing shows in all sorts of different bands. He's in touring projects. We've had all these different versions of trying to like come together and all for one for all, a creative, passion oriented project. And then, as you get into it with people, you realize where your differences are and your work ethics are different, or your values or your goals are different. And then those relationships don't always work for, the long term. But for us, we've always, despite those moments where we do like need to like step away or whatever, I feel like have been very fortunate that we resolve conflict in a pretty amicable way. There isn't ever like name calling or like that kind of stuff. Even if there's clear one of us is upset about something or there's a obvious disagreement, it's like the way that it gets handled is in a way that I think to the other one doesn't make them feel like you're trying to hurt them or whatever. It doesn't feel like a fight. It's just an actual misunderstanding or disagreement. And so for us, we've always been able to come out of the other side of that dip and, work through it. And, we've had a lot of these moments over the last, better part over a decade of like all this doubt that we're, waiting in, and then we push through and then we come out the other end and get all these high fives and it feels great.
Yes.
So what was kind of, so you've gone through the challenges, right? You push through the breaking point moment. You push through the financial burden. When did you like ultimately feel the effect of it, of like, holy shit, we did it? Like, was there a moment? Was it seeing it in the press? Was it like seeing friends on Instagram? Was it seeing friends attend?
I think just opening the doors.
Like day one, that was like, we did it.
Honestly, we had an opening party and I think we were all stressed out of making this deadline. I even pushed it back, that opening party, I think a week, and then it turned into 2 more days, and then everyone was like, what's 2 more days?
That was funny.
Yeah, we like met together and I was like, I think we need 2 more days or 3 more days. I don't even know what
we were working with. We work with Zach and Natalie from Almost Real Things, who just inherited East Austin Studio Tours and everything, and they were neighbors of ours, and they've been collaborators with us for a handful of years now, and we love them, and it's great because they have their own sort of dynamic duo relationship. And so the 4 of us, when we get together, you can tell like if we're in like a little tiff, the other 2 will start laughing because they can recognize the similarities, or vice versa. And so
mom and dad
it's fun working with them.
Yeah.
But we were working with them on the planning and promotion of that opening night and the opening party.
Yeah.
And I remember the 2-day push.
And they're like, "What is 2 more days? If you can't do it within this time frame, what is 2 more days?" And I'm like, "I need 2 more days." I was like, "This 2 days is going to be a huge thing." But we were there, like literally working right up into the party, and and we were stressing, and we're like, "I don't even want to party. Like, what are we doing?"
Zach was there that night, the day that the party happened. Like Zach was there until like 8 a.m. that morning. He had been there all day. The previous day was
we had a little installation that we literally were just finishing. It was this infinity mirror box that you put your head in.
That thing is badass.
Yeah.
That was my fault.
Well, so we used the wrong glue on the inside of the acrylic mirror, and literally
it ate through the mirror.
And I look inside, and I'm like, something wonky is going on with the mirror.
So that was like one of those. One of those super high and low moments too, because that was one of those ideas. Like we had the idea, we'd seen a couple other things that were kind of similar to that, but we had our own version that we wanted to do. Well, that's a 6-sided, figure. What's that? Hexagon. And so cutting like vertical panels with the, that proper angle that they have to have in order to make those 6 sides and whatever. And then it's a layer of plywood, and then there's the layer of acrylic mirror inside it. So then they had to be slightly different size because one is closer in, and so it's technically a little smaller, and then the cuts are a little different. So it was all these things that that we're not super proficient carpenters or whatever, but we work with some other we work with other fabricators who are kind of our go-to. Van over at Art Scene Alliance, he's like when we need to build something, and he's our kind of guru, and even he was talking through some of the stuff with us and be like, "Man, I'm not too sure about this, but like I think this is it." But then there's sometimes when I forget to like ask him a question, and so I wasn't even thinking about. I was worried about the construction and the components fitting into each other. I didn't even consider the glue as a potential like liability. So when we assembled it all, it worked perfectly. The first time we were like, "Oh my God, we did it. It looks great. It's so clean and crisp, and we did it perfect." And then the next morning, Mateo's like, "It looks weird in here. Like, what's going on? It's all foggy," and we're trying to like clean it off.
Yeah.
And we're like, "No, something's wrong." And then I called Van, and I was like, "Hey, here's what's going on." He goes, "What kind of glue did you use?"
He's like, "I told you all to use this glue."
I was like, "I used contact cement." He goes, "Bro, you can't do that." He goes, that's gonna eat away at the the backside of that acrylic." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then he told us what we had to do. So now
we had to go rush and get new plastic and take it to Van.
That was 3 days before opening day.
Yeah.
So now we have to rush cut with Van, and thankfully he takes care of us, and so he cut that again for us, and then I had to rebuild it overnight, and by the time we got everything back, I think it was like 12 hours to opening that I had that built and assembled. And
I was already ready to cut it. We'll bring it back next
do it
week.
next month.
Like let's just cut it, but we're like, no, we got to have it. So there was a lot of we had that opening party. Felt good. It was a relief.
Because once the doors are open,
and now it's real,
and now it's real.
Yeah, because it does get to a point too where like you need to, even though you have here's the date that I would like to open, and then as you work towards it, maybe you have some delays or whatever. You're like, "Oh, we should probably push that back or whatever." But at a certain point, it gets to the combination of all these different variables that you're dealing with. It's like, I wanted to do that over there. I wanted to get to this. I wanted to get to that. Oh, this thing's not working right, but we need to figure it out. You have all these different things that you're dealing with, and you can always you could work on it forever. But you gotta get to a stopping point.
Right. When is it done?
And when is it done? And that does become challenging.
And I think the next week we built a new wall, and I mean we're always adding to it.
It's an iteration. Yeah, it's an ever evolving.
But you get into that mode where you're kind of telling yourself like, I can't let people see it until it's fully done.
Yeah.
But then you realize I can just add more later. But that it's kind of hard if that's not something that you're kind of used to. Even though we know that's a thing, it's like, I don't know, you just get into that moment where you don't want to show it to somebody before it's in presentable form. And then you start showing it to people and they don't even see these things that you're concerning yourself with. So you're like, I don't know why I was so caught up in that detail that I think matters that nobody even noticed.
Well, I was looking around. When I was there, I was like looking up, I was like, let's see, where's that?
Looking for loose cables and stuff.
But it's clean, man.
Did you find
impressed.
did you find the legs in the ceiling?
No.
Okay, we weren't looking that hard then. I don't know if you remember those legs that I used to have at our old shows and stuff. I have these like mannequin legs that are cross-legged. They used to be a part of my drum set, and then they've been a version of like so many different like art installations that we've done over the years, but they're like sitting on top of one of the HVAC vents, sort of up high, and so unless you're looking into the rafters, you don't notice them.
That's all right. I'll have to check next time. So I was definitely peeking around. I mean, the exhibits were badass, but of course, me, I'm like, yeah, where are these cables? But like, it was clean. I was super impressed. So you kind of realize, okay, this works. This is real. People are experiencing it. What I am also curious about, kind of as we, wrap it up, is the ethos of all this. I mean, we've talked about, how you come up with the concept of it, how you create it, the challenges of it, the effect that it has on both y'all and people. But what does it take mentally to see a project like this through? Like, is there one thing that you felt like is consistent in y'all's process that allows you to overcome the challenges and power through? Like, is it just persistence? Is it having a good attitude? Like, how does somebody mentally get through those 16-hour days, 6 months?
Yeah. I mean, I think attitude has a lot to do with it. Just, I mean, in those, we're probably not eating the best, taking care of ourselves. We're not sleeping, but it's just about showing up and having a good attitude and being ready to work.
When I look back on it too, I'm like, I'm having like a great time. Like, cause you feel fulfilled after going through that. Like you feel like you did something worth doing. And I think a lot of the time when we're not so like dealing with the pressure of the moment of the project or whatever the thing is that we're working on, like when you're in those sort of liminal spaces of your schedule, when you're like, oh, I don't have a lot that's going on right now or whatever. Sometimes that feels almost more scary. It's like the boredom of it. And so I feel like when we really have something to work on and do, it's as much as it can be stressful and there's a lot of, expectations and pressure whenever, and you feel alive though. Like you feel like you're doing something worth doing. So for me, I don't know. I feel like it's that attitude. It's like, as long as we're all getting along and like working through stuff together and we're not actually like killing each other in the process, then I think it's,
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is it, to give advice to maybe, some young kid who is interested in pursuing production or pursuing a creative endeavor, this was a collaborative effort. Like, do you think you could take on something like this by yourself? Or do you think having a network that's the other thing too, is like, you didn't build this overnight, right? I mean, we're talking, almost 10 years ago when it really started. So like, is that a big part of it too? Like you can't, like you have to develop, like you can't just come out of the gates.
Cause it wasn't even it wasn't like a thing that one of us showed up with one day and was like, I just had this epiphany idea and it's this thing and I want to do it. It's like, it was
all the different steps.
Yeah. It was the amalgamation of all of our different experiences and like trying this and trying that and telling yourself that you want to do that. Like you think you want to do this, then you try it and maybe it doesn't result in exactly what you thought, but you learn these other things and then you get exposed to this over here and then your ideas come together and they fuse into this third, version of a thing. And then, I mean,
I think it all comes down to an experience and something that like it started evolving around seeing what's happening around us and being in the production world and what pays the bills and trying to monetize what you know how to do and pushing that forward. And we never really know which way we're going or the road we're on. We just kind of find out as we're going and we're learning and we're getting better from these Mesmerize, or even back in the Collabinar days when we started doing these event series and making art and coming together and creating an experience for not only ourselves, but for other people. And then as time went on, it's really about just honing in on that and what do we like to do. And I think it took building the first experience and seeing a kid running around playing and couples looking into each other's eyes and a friend group hugging each other and creating experiences for other people. And then not only myself going through it and enjoying it really spoke to me and like, this is what it's all for, like creating an experience. And that really like hit me hard of like, this is the real reason that I'm really enjoying this. For the longest time, it was like kind of just do because this is what I know how to do. And it took a long time to really figure out that why and really seeing it and opening the doors and watching other people go through it and enjoying it by themselves with family members, with loved ones, with their kids. Like that really spoke to me in the biggest way of like, this is really what pushes me forward to create something for myself. And, you know, it's like we go look at a sunset and it's beautiful. And like, that's an experience. So providing experiences that speak to your inner self really like helps put that out for people and like put that out for myself.
And you learn a lot about like what you thought something was when you see it through the eyes
of others
and perception of others. Yeah. Like, oh, I made this because I maybe thought I was going to give people this kind of experience, but the way that they're choosing to interact with it is this whole other way. So you learn a lot from it. It's like humbling and it's beautiful and it allows you to learn and have these broader, you know, lenses of your own perception and things like that. For me, I don't think I could have done something like that by myself. It's like I want to be the kind of person who tells myself I can. Like that's where my ego and control freak nature kind of lives. But when I actually look at it, it's like I'm a collaborator. Like at the end of the day, you know, like I don't really want. There's certain things I want to do by myself, but I want to be like interacting with people from the creative point of view to the celebratory point of view. Like, and so, I mean, and then in terms of like advice for anybody else trying to be creative or anything like that, I think just trying to ask yourself, what's my intention with this thing? Am I doing whatever this thing is that I'm about to do because I'm trying to pay my bills, or is it because I'm trying to, you know, learn something new? Am I trying to, you know, prove something to somebody else? Am I wanting to just make something beautiful? Like what are your intentions with the thing that you're trying to embark on? And then try to figure that out, and then just be open to the process and know that it's going to be a process. And
amen.
Yeah. Follow your passion. I mean, whatever you're doing, believe in it. Believe in yourself.
Gotta like, and I got this actually from Troy. You know, we ran into each other the other day here at Waterloo, and we were re-releasing Troy Campbell, who's an old mentor and boss of mine and friend. You know, he used to tell me that one of his old mentors always told him about the creative process. Like, whatever it is that you're doing and you're embarking on, you need to fall in love with the process. So like, if you don't love the process, then it's not worth doing.
Yep.
Like, go do something else then. Like, the results aren't going to matter if you hate the journey, you know?
Kind of like cooking, right? If you don't cook with love, it's going to be shitty foods.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to tell. Like, we're going to be able to tell.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, y'all. I mean, I think those are some great ending kind of, you know, words of advice for everybody who is interested in getting into it. You know, you have to be open to experiences. And I really like the idea of you just have to love the process, you know, because it just says you're never going to know the end result. So I think those are, you know, some great words for everybody to take in for their everyday life, right? Not just for projects, just for everyday life.
Follow your passion. A highlight that happened recently, I was at the Balloon Museum. I always go to these different experiences to see what other things are happening.
Gotta do R&D.
There was a kid there that had a Mesmerize shirt,
Nice.
and that like was like, oh, this is amazing.
That's
That
badass.
feels so cool. He like,
Yeah.
was wearing a Mesmerize shirt, and like that made me smile, and just like in general, it's just like,
You're like, here's your $5, kid.
That made my day.
And then, like we said, we had our 1 year anniversary party where Capiak was there, and then Reggie Watts was the special guest, which was one of those things where, it might happen, it might not. And then he showed, and I'm a huge Reggie Watts fan, and he came in and he was so kind and generous, and he was telling us, like, complimenting the space. And it's one of those things where, I guess technically he's a peer, but to me, he's somebody I look up to, and he's been in the, the art world for a lot longer than we have, really. And he's a bit more established than us. So when somebody like that comes through your doors and gives you that high five, it feels really good. So that was a lot of fun. And like to see him in the space, like doing what he does, improvising musically, and us getting to see that sort of come to life. It's like, we were able to, all those ups and downs that we had led us to this moment right now where 200 people are celebrating and dancing, and high-fiving each other. And one of my favorite artists is here, doing his thing. Like, this is so cool that we were able to like be a part of this.
Yeah.
And
it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Falling in love with this process, and really excited for what's next.
Well,
Yes.
Can y'all, before we go, is there anything on the horizon that y'all want to put out there?
We're looking for a bigger space.
Okay.
We're going to get into a bigger space with a proper event space, bar, community-oriented space.
Our goal is to scale up.
Yes.
Yeah.
We love what we're doing, and we're real grateful and fortunate to have done what we've done in the spaces that we have. But we really want this thing to be a long-term destination, creative hub for Austin and for us and our community of creatives. Like, so we want to be able to offer more and do more, because our space is pretty limited in the versatility of it. It works really well for the art exhibit, but we want to be able to give people more than that. So, and we want it to be able to last, a little longer.
Yeah.
So ideally we can either purchase a place or at least get into a long-term lease situation to where we know we can plan for the future a bit more.
Yeah.
Instead of having to think 6 to 12 months out, we want to plan for bigger things.
So that's a big goal for 2026, is to get into a more permanent, larger space.
Other than that, I think we're gonna shut the doors in January for a little bit to do some updates, and we're gonna add a few new pieces. So there will be a little bit of downtime right after the new year where we're just sort of cleaning things up, and then we're gonna refreshing and adding a few new things. So if you have been
New glue.
exactly.
Get ready for the new year.
So if you have been, and then you come when we reopen early February, then there'll be some new things for you to find.
Heck yeah. Well, that's exciting, y'all.
It's been so fun, man. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely,
Yes.
man. Thank y'all for being on. What a story, and what a journey. I mean, y'all are just incredible at what you do. And I think the Austin community is embracing it more and more. And, hearing about what the next step is for y'all and those goals is super exciting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, where that goes. So
Yes, very
We
excited.
appreciate that. And I mean, like, we've been watching you, come up from the ground up too. And, there's plenty of
been a
times where
good,
we're
yeah.
like, man, look at Drew and all of our other friends who started these businesses. Like,
It's been pretty wild.
We came up together. It's cool.
It's been a really cool ecosystem. We've all grown together, and I think that's one thing that really makes this, particular, I guess, moment in time and this city special, is that I think everybody has treated each other as not competition, but more of just we are peers. We want to help each other, and I think everyone's given each other a lot of space to grow and do their thing. So I appreciate those kind words.
Yeah.
Thank y'all again so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Y'all check them out. Mesmerize. They're open Wednesday through Sunday. They'll be closed for a little bit come January, but open back up in February, it sounds like. So again, congrats to all the success. High fives all around. And until next time,
Cheers.
cheers, y'all.
Cheers.